Oh there, YouTube. Mr. Gibson Guy here. Thanks for dropping by the channel again, or for the first time. If you haven't joined yet, give us a like, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below, and let me get on with today's video. I'm Mr. Gibson Guy, and I do a lot of different subjects on my channel. Subjects of interest to me, and some people I guess find it interesting because they come and watch my videos on it. Today I'm doing a motorcycle video, and it's going to be one a little bit different. If you're watching, you've seen my videos before, you know. I have a 2002 Harley-Davidson Sportster and a 2006 Triumph Bonneville T100. And I've done a number of different videos on there, on those two bikes. I've had a number of other bikes you've probably seen, some of you've seen it in the background. And there's one bike that I've had this for 11 years, I had this one for 10 years, and this other bike I've had for 9 years. And I haven't ever featured it on a video. And I thought, you know, I really should. And it had been down for a while, and it's back up and active again. Still got a droopy turn signal that broke off on it, but it's dangling and it's got to be retaped until I replace the turn signal. But at any rate, this bike is different from a Harley-Davidson or a Triumph. It's kind of similar to the Triumph, but it's kind of the opposite of Harley-Davidson. It's a nice bike. It's not my favorite bike. I don't think it's anybody's favorite bike, or anybody thinks it's a beautiful bike. It's kind of an ungainly looking motorcycle. But it fills a niche when you're looking at motorcycles that actually have utility to them. Can a motorcycle be a utility vehicle? A sport utility vehicle, but can it have utility? And the answer is yes. Some people find motorcycling is something that can be done utilitarianly and still enjoyed, and some people think of it as being the opposite of that. But let's take a look here. I got it out of the garage here in the light, so we can kind of take a look and see what's on here. What's going on? Here we go. There. Gonna move this in a minute. This is a 1996 BMW R850r. And this is the bike that I've had for 9 years. And it is a bike which is currently about 28 years old. But we're going to look at the bike up close, and we're going to not just go over the features of it, but some of its history and some of the history that came after it. Okay, so let's take a look at this bike first of all. See if I can get this undone. Taking it off the tripod's easy, getting it back on in the middle of the video is the hard part. So, we see here, take a look, this is obviously a Boxer twin. You can see it's got those cylinders pointing out on either side. Get down low, we can see them better. This is air-cooled and, bring this in here, air-cooled and oil-cooled. You can see there is an oil cooler in front of each cylinder. So this is one of the coolest running air-cooled engines that there is, because it's not air-cooled, it's air-cooled and oil-cooled. But it just has, you know, wet sump oil. It's got twin Brembo, just one R, Brembo brakes. These always get a lot of attention from people. Boy, that's a lot of disc, and there's another one on the other side.
and a small one in the back too. This has the really funky fork system, spring system for the front suspension. If you're familiar with the historical R series BMWs, they had an Earl's leading link front fork instead of the regular telescopic. This front fork BMW came out with later, and it's kind of like a Kawasaki Unitrack, only on the front end instead of the back. And it works well. It rides very smoothly and handles very well. It's a boxer, but unlike the early R's, these cylinders are way up off the ground, so you have almost unlimited banking clearance when you crank it over in a curve. It is, of course, shaft drive, and it has another Unitrack suspension on the rear end. So there's nothing conventional about this one. Well, I guess more conventional now is to have a single-sided swing arm, but this was in '96. This was new. Also, let's see, where's the cylinder heads? Let's go. This has fuel injection. '96. That makes it about 10 years before Harley-Davidson had their first fuel injection bike. I'm not a big fan of motorcycle fuel injection. I like carburetors. My other two bikes have carburetors. And the two bikes that I used to have that I sold, they had fuel injection. This also has, down there you see, a catalytic converter. And it's got a 2-into-1 exhaust, you can see here, on the front. It mixes together and then it goes underneath. And let's go around on the other side. These are 3-spoke alloy wheels. And it is BMW. And this has this single-sided exhaust, which comes up like it's a dirt bike. But this is meant for the road. Back this up. There we go. So we can see that there's a kind of a fender kit on it underneath the rear seat, and the front seat is removable, and then the back seat comes off too. It does have a few BMW-centric tools that go with it. Let's see if we can see. Yeah, you can see that catalytic converter real good under here. This gets to be kind of ugly sides of it. But it's got a center stand, which is kind of unusual to people these days, and it has a side stand or kickstand. Let's see if I can take this up, take this down. So you can see both of them. Now, when you're going someplace and you get there, when you put your side stand down, it kills the engine. But BMW has both stands on there, so if you want to work on the bike, you put the center stand down, not the kickstand, and the engine will run with the center stand down, but it won't run with the center stand extended. So you gotta have it down. But if it's folded up, it won't bother it. So this is a 5-speed transmission. Let's see if I can. Oh, I think I can go on this side with the lights better. See if you can see this. This is one of the real interesting things about this bike. They did a bunch of stuff that's kind of weird, just unique to this bike, or to the R series. This is, read that, I don't know if you can focus, yeah, I think you can read that, 4-valve. This is a single cylinder, and there's a single cylinder on the other side, and it is a 4-valve head, 2 intake valves, 2 exhaust valves. This is also a overhead valve engine, camshaft located in the crankcase, and it's a push rod. But that's okay, because this bike gets plenty of performance from 850 cc's. The weight of it is, it's kind of classified. Nobody's really saying it's somewhere just below 500 pounds, I think, is what I've been able to find the best information from. let's see, pull this back, wide angle, there we go. Now, up here, we can see it has, this came with the bike, I'm the second owner, came with the bike, it has these hand grip covers, you see, and there's the mirror, and it came with a shorty windscreen, which I wanted to take off immediately when I got the bike, and it's almost impossible to do it, so I left it on and finally got used to it. I don't like windscreens in the summer because they block the airflow that keeps you cool, or that tries to cool you down a little bit in Florida for the summer. Ooh, a helicopter coming. But when it rains, this bike is the best thing you can ride for a motorcycle, to be in the rain. The Coast Guard flying over there. Because you have the cylinders, you have the oil filters, you have the gas tank, and your legs fit up in here with your knees, and up here you hide behind the cylinder, and then you have your feet on the pegs here. Foot, yeah, there you go, like that. So when you duck down behind this windscreen, you are almost completely shielded from the rain. You get wet on your knees. Some water will come in between the tank and the oil cooler. But other than that, you can ride, as long as you don't stop, you can ride in the rain and not really get very wet. I don't know how long. You see that? The old decal is still there. The owner that had this before me always kept it in the garage, and since I've had it for the past 9 years, I've always kept it in the garage, so it's been a garage-kept bike. Let's look up here. The 850 was the economy model because it came with just a speedometer, no tachometer, and the simplified dials on it. It has a low fuel indicator, doesn't have a what do you call it? It doesn't show you what how many gallons you have left. It doesn't have a fuel gauge. That's the word. Yeah. All right. And two of these are dummy switches, and this one is for emergency flasher, I think. All right. It doesn't work. And that's the thing you turn to reset your odometer. And you can see this has 2,427 miles on it. The bottom is your trip odometer that you reset with the trip on. And it takes the keys, and you got your horn and your turn signal. This is your choke. You don't have choke on fuel injection, but they have choke. Over on the other bar, this is your kill switch, kill, run. This is to start, and this, I added on to it. This is a cruise control, and you just turn it so that when you set the throttle, it won't go past there because you prop it up, bang it against that shaft for the mirror, and it'll make sure you hold your speed. It actually works pretty well. It's just this little Y-shaped thing that clips on there. It hasn't ripped through the hand grip yet. Let me put this camera back on the stand, and I'll show you something else that I was not real thrilled about when I got it, but I've gotten used to it and actually came to like them quite a bit for what you can do with this bike. All right, watch this. Right here. a small one for the side that has the exhaust pipe on it, and you have the large one for the side that doesn't have an exhaust pipe. Got no room. And this one here clips right under here, falls into place, and you got luggage. You have pretty good usable storage capacity with these two saddlebags. They are BMW saddlebags. See, I think, yeah, this one still says it on it. I think one of the badges came off, but you can see the white and blue there, BMW. They have handles on them, and you fold them down, and they lock on. You can see the one on the right here is the larger capacity one. The one on the left obviously is cut back because it's got that exhaust muffler coming right out through the middle of it. And I find I can put, well, I used to put $30 in groceries into these things. Now it's more like $40. Haven't gotten bigger, but the groceries have gotten more expensive, and $30 buys you less. Yeah. This one is missing its red reflector, but it's still got the blue on it. So that's it. Now there's one other thing I got to tell you about using the saddlebags on this, and that is if you're using the center stand, it's kind of, you know, I said something about a center stand at a motorcycle shop. And the lady that owned the shop said, "What's a center stand?" And because her place mainly worked on Harleys, and Harleys don't have center stands. Not many companies do have center stands, but BMW gives you the choice. But if you're on the center stand and use your saddlebags, you're fine with that. If you want to put it, if you're going to use your saddlebags and use the side stand, there's a side stand there. Well, that's a center stand. If you want to use a side stand or kickstand, then you got to be careful because the bike is leaning to one side. The bike will be leaning to the left on the side. If you take the big saddlebag and load it up with some bottles of water and some heavy groceries and stuff like that, before you put anything in this saddlebag, you're not going to be balanced, and the bike will fall over to the right because you put too much weight there. So if you're going to be on the side stand, you got to put your whatever you're packing away into your left saddlebag before you pack the right saddlebag. If you use a center stand, it doesn't matter. Now, what else about the bike? Well, let's see. It's an 850cc air oil-cooled twin shaft drive, and it is one of the late models of the BMW R series. The R series BMWs started with, well, I don't know if they had a single at first, but they didn't. I should go back further than that. BMW was started during the First World War as a company to build engines for aeroplanes, like a Fokker D7. The airframe companies built the airframe for the airplane, but they didn't build engines. They bought them from an outside supplier. And BMW started out making aircraft engines. Let's see, can I close in on that? I bet I can. The BMW logo, if you don't know it, is a spinning propeller, because BMW was originally an airplane engine builder. After the war, the Treaty of Versailles said that BMW could not build aircraft engines anymore. Couldn't you build anything for use for war? So building airplanes or aircraft engines was forbidden by the Treaty of Versailles. And so the company kind of floated around trying to think of what else they could do. And somebody came along with the idea of motorizing bicycles, which was a big thing after the war because people want to have some form of transportation, but they didn't have the resources to have, well, that was before much Henry Ford stuff and things like that. So automobiles were very rare and expensive. So they came up with the idea of putting a motor on a bicycle, and then that developed in the early 20th century into building motorcycles. So what BMW did was they took their expertise, what they had learned from building aircraft engines, and applied it to building motorcycle engines. Same idea, just less cylinders and smaller displacement, because it's obviously takes less power than moving a Fokker D7. That's going to take a bit more to lift. So they scaled down their engines, and because they had been doing aircraft design, they were doing air-cooled. It was mixed air and oil-cooled or air and water-cooled back in those days, liquid-cooled. But BMW concentrated on the air-cooled because that's what they were using for airplanes. And if you look at this engine, it's got a lot of similarities to airplane engines. If you're looking at Lycoming engines or Continental engines, Franklin engines, all those aircraft engine companies made basically boxer engines. A cylinder on either side, 2 cylinders on either side, 3 cylinders on either side. There was even some Lycomings with 4 cylinders on either side. They have flat 8. So BMW is one of the originators of that. And in 1927, which was almost 10 years after the war ended, in 1927, BMW introduced their first motorcycle that was more than just a bicycle. It was a purpose-built motorcycle with their BMW engine and their frame, chassis, wheels and everything. And that was the original R27. That was the beginning of the R series, which were these opposed twin-cylinder, horizontally opposed engines, twin-cylinder engines. Originally, at some point they had a 250 single, which was, I think that was a spin-off of the R series, and that was called an R25, later an R27. That one disappeared about 1967 or 68, when I was just starting to get into motorcycles, and I was at a BMW dealer and saw one of the last ones that was for sale. And oh boy, I wanted it, but no, my dad wasn't going to get me a BMW for my first motorcycle. R27 was cool. It was a dog though. It was 250cc, about 18 horsepower, 400 pounds, so it wasn't going to go anywhere. That was more European standard than American standard in those days. So the R27 continued through production from 1927 on through the 30s, through the 40s. The BMW motorcycles, very similar Zundap motorcycles that the Germans used during the war, were the opposed twin, same thing. And then after the war, they came back with them, and they came out with their R50 and their R60 in the 60s, which was their big, luxurious machines, 500 cc's and 30 horsepower, or 600 cc's and a little over 30 horsepower, but not much. And then they came out with their high compression version, which was the R69, which was still a 600, but it put out about 42 horsepower, and that was their high performance machine of the 60s. Then in the early 70s, they moved up. They made the engine and crankcase more like this bike, and went up to the R900, which was a very well-known bike of theirs. And then they went into their brick, which was 3 cylinders on one side, liquid-cooled, and some of their other bikes, they started going to 4 cylinders. And they changed around from the R, but they still kept the R bikes in the lineup. And BMW, of course, after about 20 years of making motorcycles, also came out with cars. And with the cars, they decided that they could make a lot more money on cars. So motorcycles became kind of a sideline for BMW. It became, what they are now, a very big company. And they were getting to the point where they didn't even know if they wanted to make motorcycles anymore. It was a small division. It's what started them, but that was part of BMW, but not really the big money. And so they came along with the idea of, we can make a motorcycle that's an economy model, because they had, like I said, they had dropped the R27 back in the mid-60s, and so they were making 11 and 1200 cc twins, and they said, well, let's make a smaller bike to get people riding BMWs. Let's, an entry-level bike, and that would be the R850, which is only 48 cc smaller than the R900 was, which was their fire breather at the time in the early 70s. But the R850 came along with, as we pointed out, with less instruments. This one has some hints at ABS, but actually is not an ABS brake. I think that was just some of the stuff from the more expensive ones had ABS on them. And now the big thing with BMWs is people were getting kits to remove their ABS from their motorcycle because they rather just have the regular brakes. It's safer. That's a side note. But they came out with this one and sold it in the world market, sold it in the US market shortly. Didn't last very long. And I've seen some pictures of them. They didn't all have the 3-spoke wheels. Some of them had the regular wire-spoke wheels on them. And if you see a black one that's all black and shiny, some people put down the paint kit on it, where you do pinstripe the gas tank with white, black gas tank with white pinstripe, and it makes the R850 just look like it's another R-Series bike from the 60s, when they used to just be black and white and had white pinstriping or black pinstriping, depending on the opposite of what the color was. And I've thought about that, but to be accurate looking, you want to have the spoke wheels, and I'll just stick with these. And this bike is too good utilitarian to be chopped or messed with. It's got a little ding on the gas tank from when it fell over in the truck and hit the side of the truck, and that's where the windshield, the turn signal got broken also. But other than that, it's been in good shape, and people ride these things at 100,000 miles. This motorcycle was not meant to go real fast, although it'll go 120, and it'll get up there pretty quickly. It gives you pretty good weather protection for a motorcycle, and it gets up and goes and will carry a lot, and you can get a lot of utility out of it. Now, the tag to the story is that in the 1990s, when they were trying the R850r and the big brother R1100, that was kind of the last gasp of the BMW R series, because they were making more and more of their GS series and some of their other ones that had a boxer engine, but it was liquid cooled. They were doing away with air cooling, which is really sad, because these with the air and oil cooler, you'd never miss having a radiator. You're just happy that you don't have the complexity and the weight and all the extra stuff that goes with it. This bike is just perfect like that. So BMW, corporate, the main company, was looking at motorcycles, and they're like, oh, you're making these R series, we've been making them forever, and why are we still making them? They're not even modern motorcycles. Well, it's not a modern motorcycle, but it performs and is more reliable than a modern motorcycle. and it keeps going and going. And so the bike guys sent over the message to the car guy that says, well, you know what? It's 2016, and 2017 will be the 90th anniversary of the R series. The original R27 will be 90 years old. And in 2017, sorry. So before we kick the R series to the curb, let us make just a regular R series motorcycle that'll be a 90th anniversary. You know, it's a big anniversary. You probably could sell some bikes just from pushing that idea, because we do have a faithful following, and BMW has been the #1 motorcycle company in Europe for most of the 90 years. You know, there's Ducati, and there's Moto Guzzi, and there's all kind, you know, Triumph in England. There are all sorts of different companies, many of them Italian or Spanish, but BMW has been the biggest sales leader all through everything but the wars. And so there's a market for it. So they said, all right, you what are you going to do? So they said, oh, let's come up with something. And they basically started out with this bike, but they put the 1100cc engine in it instead of the 850cc, and they put regular forks on it, so it's a little bit more traditional looking, not quite so unique. And they called it, because this was the R's 90th anniversary, they called it the R9, number 9T. R9T is the model that they came out with in 2017, and for their upcoming, they probably came out a little bit early, but probably 2016, but their upcoming 90th anniversary of the R series, they came out with the R9T, and guess what? They couldn't make enough. They couldn't keep them in stock. Everybody went crazy. Was it because it was a traditional motorcycle? Because it looked more like a motorcycle from the 60s or 70s than it did from the 2017s? I don't know, but they ended up coming out with a whole family of R9Ts, and the R9T was outselling all their other motorcycles combined. And that was the one that corporate office says, let's drop this line. I love when the corporate guys say that, and then they say, oh, just give us one chance. And then it blows them all away. And that's what happened. And from that, they grew the R18, I think that's it. R18, that's the 1800cc twin. They're Harley Davidson cruiser type bike with a boxer engine, a great big boxer engine. Wow, that's a cool bike. I wouldn't want to pick it up if it fell over, but that's not much fun with any motorcycle. But that was a story that put BMW motorcycles right back in the thick of things when they came out with their anniversary R9T. And they're even making R12s now, and they're continuing on with it because it became a big family of motorcycles, and the parent company was going to discontinue them all. So if you look at an R9T and you look at the R850, you'll see, other than the front fork and the gas tank, it's pretty much the same bike. It does most all the same stuff. Maybe the gas tank is the same. I don't know, but it does look better with the regular front fork rather than this trailing link thing, whatever it is. But these bikes are not very popular. They don't have a high resale value. Not that I've been able to find any, but I don't know. Maybe they do now, because they seem to have disappeared. There wasn't very many of them. And I think most people that have them are not selling them. They're going to keep them because they're going to die before the bike does. It's going to keep going and going and going. And this, I got into a BMW for the cheapest of prices when I got this, and it's never let me down. It's let me down a couple of times. One warning for the R850: always put high test gas in it. Don't mess up and put in regular, because it does not like regular. It'll go bang, boom, pop, plop, plop if you put regular gas in it, because it's the high enough compression head that it's got to have better gas. So just keep that in mind. But that's my story. If you have a story about a BMW, or especially an R850r or any BMW, you have a comment, anything I said that was incorrect, I'm not going from script. This is right out of my head here. So I think I've got everything right. But if I miss something, somebody let me know. I'm sure you will. And until the next time, this is Mr. Gibson Guy. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.